Hello and welcome to the Next in Line podcast, where we are helping to prepare you for whatever is next in line. As always, I am your host, Chance Pitts, and I would like to thank you for tuning into this episode. Guys and gals, welcome into another episode of the Next in Line podcast. I'm very excited to have y'all in here today as we continue with part 2 of the Cocodona 250 recap with Dan Gilliam. He's an awesome individual. We've had an awesome time getting to recap this race and meet with him out in Arizona. For those of y'all that didn't listen to part 1 yet, I highly encourage you to go back and listen to the story of this 250-mile race that runs from Black Canyon City, Arizona up to Flagstaff, Arizona. It's an amazing story with an amazing person, and we're blessed to get to call Dan a friend and to grow closer with him throughout this ultramarathon and running journey that we've been on. Now, guys, before we get into that story, though, I want to make sure we take care of some housekeeping and announcements. First and foremost, if you receive value from this episode of the Next in Line podcast, we would ask that you share the show with like-minded individuals who could receive the same kind of value. That's the number one way for us to grow and to reach a larger audience and, in effect, help more people. Now, along with that, guys, you can also like, comment, subscribe, leave a rating or review on whatever platform you find yourself listening on, and that's just going to help us pop up in those search results earlier as people look for personal development and self-help type podcasts. Now, another thing I would encourage y'all to do is give us a follow on social media. That's at Next in Line Development on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok, or all three of those. And you can shoot us a DM, let us know how we're doing. Give us any questions, comments, concerns that you might have for this podcast here. And we would appreciate hearing from you guys. That's also where we put our daily content out for the most part. And you'll be able to catch it there and keep up with all the craziness that we have going on. Now, along with that, guys, we have a few announcements. First and foremost, this weekend was a great one because we got to travel to Schulenburg, Texas, and help celebrate the new marriage of Mr. and Mrs. Diven. So huge congratulations to them. We've had Lane Diven on the podcast several times now. Him and his fiance, Kendall, now wife, finally tied the knot. It's been a long time coming. We're super stoked for them and very excited as they get to gear up and go on their honeymoon this week. That's announcement number 1, guys. The next one would be that, man, this weekend was one of them that we got to spend with just a fantastic group of people. We were surrounded by the Divens, by their families, my family, by just a phenomenal group of guys that we got to hang out with all around with the groomsmen that we were with the entire time. And it was just a spectacular group of people with some great conversation. And I'm always very thankful for getting to have those conversations with those kind of guys, the quality individuals that we get to surround ourselves with. So just very grateful and thankful for those experiences and getting to do that this weekend. And I wanted to share that with y'all guys. But also, a couple of more announcements for events that we have coming up. As y'all know, we're gearing up for a few more races, guys. First and foremost, on June 10th, we have Ricochet's Riot coming up in Killeen, Texas. It's a smaller ultramarathon, but it's a 50K race all the way down to 5K, so there's varied differences in there, or distances, I should say, in there for people to compete in. We've got a group of people going up there to hopefully be pretty competitive in those races. If you're interested in coming along with that one or having our crew there to help support you as you run this race, give us a shout. Let us know what's going on and what you need from us. Next on the list, guys, is Habanero 100 Relay over in Cat Spring, Texas on August 12th. We're really looking forward to that race. We got out and ran the 100-mile solo event last year. I had a great crew and a great time out there. Just getting out there in Cat Spring. It's hot. It's humid. It's very rough when it comes to the footing and just the climate that you find yourself running that kind of race in, but it's a very enjoyable event. We're going back this year, like I said, to do the relay, and we're going to take it on and try to go out there and be really competitive. If you're interested in jumping on a relay team, you can get with us, check out all the details of it, and see if it's something you want to do, and we'd be glad to have you aboard. After that, on the books, guys, the KD225 is an ultramarathon that runs across Missouri. It's a 225-mile race following the Katy Trail, and it starts on October 23rd. That will be my longest event to date, my first branch into the 200-mile class, and I'm super, super excited about it. We're going to have Dan, who's on this episode of this podcast, running it with us, and probably a couple more individuals that we know pretty well. So super stoked about that and excited about getting out there and sharing the trail with some great people. Lastly, on this list, we plan on being out at Brazos Bend 100 on December 2nd in Needville, Texas, to help support Michael Ruiz as he knocks out his first 100-mile ultramarathon. It's going to be a huge jump for him in the running career and the distance-wise, but we're really looking forward to seeing him attack that thing and just knock it out of the park. We'll be out there crewing. I imagine between now and then we'll have a few more racers sign up, being that it's not till December, but we'll get with that and we'll figure everything out as we get closer to that. But guys, that is all the announcements I've had. Like I said, please go back and listen to part 1 of this extremely interesting and awesome podcast that we had, this conversation that we had to talk to Dan. Just very, very enjoyable, and it's been a great experience for us. I hope you enjoy part 2 as we dive in here, guys. But without any further ado, here is part 2 of the Cocodona 250 recap with Dan Gilliam. Grabbed everything and jumped out and took off, you know?
Yeah. And then, we went light on the clothes, and I probably should have known, because even coming down from Snibley to Munds, there was a portion that was kind of, obviously you got into the mountains, there was trees, and you look out to where it looked like they probably graze cattle during the summer, and there's still snow there, and the breeze started kicking up as the sun goes down, and I definitely got a little cold coming in there and started to run just to stay warm coming into Munds, and then you get down into Munds, and it's a nice town. There's nice houses, but you could tell that they just literally came out of snow season. There's gravel all over the sidewalks and roads still. I mean, the pathways are just covered with black gravel. So you got to kind of watch your step on the concrete with just the gravel coming into town. So for the most part, I just tried to stay on the road, and it's a pretty quiet town. Looks like it's probably one of those seasonal towns where people come and go different times of the year, and then you got people that probably bear it through the whole year too.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seemed like a neat town. But coming in at 10 p.m., we got kind of the very brief view of it as we jumped and got ready to take off and started climbing up, just going up streets. It seemed like trying to climb up and out of the town to connect back in the trail on the backside of Munds Park. And at that point, I think I threw navigation on the watch as well, so I had that going for us. Like right as soon as we hit the trail, we hit some confusion on the navigation out there. That area seemed to get a little bit tricky, right outside of Munds Park.
Yeah, it was interesting. The map was not matching up with the flags. So the flags were showing us off course. The flags we could see they were right there, but they weren't on. Apparently they probably imagine they moved them over there, or the map was just confusing people. So they moved those over to that better trail, because it was a little bit more established trail that was off. And yeah, we ran into some people that were having some issues out in the field of being on course from there. So.
Yeah, within the first handful of miles, I think we found a couple of different groups that were lost. The flags took off across the field off of that established trail, where there was no trail, just straight through the woods. And it was cool helping getting some people back on track. And then going into that, I know it was dark, it was cold, but the wind chill got down to about 25 degrees that night or something like that. So that was,
there's a bunch of trees that we went over too. That was like the first real navigation over a lot of tree falls. I think there was one section where we probably went up the hill and around, I would say, at least 10 to 15 trees. It was a good stretch of big trees down across this logging road. And just a total environment change, really, from I would say that Snibbly on, you get up into the high mountain and you're getting close. You're getting close to Flagstaff. It's starting to look like Flagstaff. It's got the trees and snow and the cold air. And at that point, you're out of the high desert and you're up there in the mountains. And it's just, I think that's what's so amazing about that race is just the different environments that you really go through. You're starting in low desert, which is kind of looks just like Phoenix. It's just outside of Phoenix, to really the high mountain and just a total change of environment to where it doesn't even seem like you're in the same world, but you're right there in the same state still. So
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
absolutely. And you see the temperature change that I think somebody had said it was 9 degrees at the lowest point up on top of Elden.
Yeah,
One
that's what
night.
I'd heard. Yeah, I think that night that you guys got there, I think it was that night on Elden was 9 degrees, which makes sense when it was like 25 for us, and
Yeah.
we definitely didn't have the right amount of clothes, but we made it through. And we seen a guy in a garbage bag laying on the side of the trail, so that was where I didn't want to be, is that tired guy that had to try to get some sleep in 20-degree weather.
Man, I think there was some folks as we came through there that were they were holding on for daylight, just hoping for the best, seeing that sunrise, and they were planning on getting moving after that. Because, man, I don't ever want to say anything bad about anybody else, but it's like that kind of energy levels you detect out there, like you were talking about, and the negativity that pulls you in. There was some through that stretch from, let's see, came in at Munds Park to Kelly and out to Fort Toto where we picked up Dad. There was some dark places out there, and some people in some pretty bad spots between the cold, how far you were in the race, and the dark. So I don't know if you want to talk about Kelly out there, because that was pretty grim.
Yeah, Kelly was, came in, it was cold, people around the fire. Like you said, there's people in some pretty bad places. There's people with some tears going, and just you could tell just feeling it mentally and physically at that point. And I wanted to get out of there quick and didn't want to be really, like I said, you don't want to say nothing bad about people, and I've been there before, but I just know that kind of stuff can be contagious to people. And so I wanted to get in and get out as quick as possible, and that also wasn't a crude aid station, and I was looking forward just to knocking that next section out and waking your dad up in the morning so he could go for the next run.
Well, y'all texted me when you got into Kelly, I think, and I was like, wow, already? Y'all made like 10 miles pretty quick across there.
Yeah, we picked up pace. Dan was moving phenomenally. We were running several sections of that track back into there. And we hit Kelly. We had a full head of steam, and like he said, didn't want to see the negativity and be around it, and have that jump onto you. So I think I grabbed you some potatoes that turned out to be lava.
Yeah, I think my mouth's still burnt.
Burnt the crap out of your mouth with some potatoes up there on the trail at Kelly, and then we decided to grab what little we could and just make for the trail. Had a guy that kind of jumped in behind us and fell in. I think he was holding on to the pace we were putting down because he was feeling the same thing. He didn't want to get sucked into that whole deal. And I think you moving the way you did definitely helped that gentleman through the night. I forgot his name, but
yeah, his name was Tony. Tony.
Tony,
I can't
yeah.
remember his last name, but Tony, an older gentleman, and yeah, he was moving right along with us too. So he kept up with us for sure.
He did, and he kept trucking along, and man, we went winding through all the different trails and switchbacks and crossed the highway again and headed out towards good old Fort Toto. I think what time we ended up making it there? About 4 a.m. I think.
Yeah, sunrise again, whatever it was. the 4 a.m. the sun up.
Yeah, and I think Chance, you called me and woke me up. I was sound asleep.
Yeah, we covered some ground. I do want to say we passed a lot of people coming out of Munds Park and going up towards Kelly, and then obviously a lot of people huddled up at Kelly that we passed, and we still overtook a lot of people going out to Fort Tuttle on some of those climbs and different things. You were moving really strong, climbing like a mountain goat out there in some of those little brief climbs we had, and people were really struggling with. And I asked you a question out there about being competitive and how it felt that late in the race, passing people. And I don't know if you want to kind of share how it feels, because I know it can feel kind of different whenever you're that in. You get more focused on just finishing rather than competing at some of those points. But I think you gave me an answer that said you still wanted to go out there and compete, you know?
Yeah, I think I'm always competitive. I'm always in a race like that. I'm just, like you say, I go back to competing with myself. I just want to finish it and really just competing with better myself in it and doing the best. But there's times where you want to beat certain people, or whatever it is, that drives you really. And sometimes I create that just to keep me driving. So I pick somebody that's behind me that I know that I don't want them to catch me. So it kind of helps motivate me to push more than anything. It's not that it matters to me to beat them, but it kind of just is another motivational factor. Dating way back to when I was in high school and played high school sports and ran track and played other sports, is just that competitive drive helps feel the fire, I guess. So it's a little harder to do an ultra marathoning because I haven't really found anybody that I dislike out there, But
Sure.
like we were joking around about it, is like it don't have to be somebody that I dislike. It could be a friend, because we joked around about being competitive in KD 225 and knowing each other's strategies and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, but it's cool that you find little ways to keep yourself motivated, right? And little things that spur a positive response in the mind and keep you driving down the trail. Um, Man, I think we got into Tuttle, and we got you some. It was cold, so it was good to be in the aid station. And then on top of that, we got you some food. I know we were both pretty hungry after that stretch. I think they had some pasta and meatballs and some other stuff. And then
Oh
seeing
yeah, that
Grace.
was good food.
And a pair of socks.
And a pair of
Yeah,
socks. Yes, I stole your guys' socks.
that's right. Hey, we're happily give them up. Happily give them up. But you got in there and woke Dad up, so he was scrambling like crazy trying to get ready to roll. And then I think you rested for maybe 10 minutes, maybe. I don't even think you slept
No, I
that
think on
long.
the ground. I think on the ground, Grace was redoing my feet, and I think I kind of was just nodding off a little bit here and there.
Yeah. Yes, sir. And then you ran into some folks that you knew coming into the aid station too. So that was kind of a cool deal. Um, and then, man, just that was kind of a neat spot because everything was inside, sleep stations, and just had so many volunteers there and medical teams ready to roll with whatever people needed. So that was really cool to see and get that feel for what a 200-mile plus race looked like for me personally too. But
Yeah, yeah. I think there was the last time I'd seen. There's Lori and Roger Pineapple. They're from Truckee, California, and he's been doing ultra marathoning since the start. He's one of the pioneers of it, and he did the original Bigfoot and original Tahoe 200. And just a really great guy. I met him the first time in Bigfoot at one of the aid stations there, and was joking around with him about hallucinations and stuff. And he's super good people. He's from New Zealand and has an accent, and just a really nice guy. And his wife she's great too. She's willing to help with anything really. She was a huge factor of why I finished Moab really, because she took our stuff back into the town, to the hotel. And then we had another person there that had drove Grace out there, so she was able to pace and stuff. So just people just showing up really that were unplanned for her to be able to pace me in Moab. And yeah, just really great people. I mean, he's 63 and out there doing that. And that's amazing. This to give you hope to be able to do that kind of stuff at that age, and really, really well too. He does really well on the hills, and just I can't say enough about the guy. I mean, we yo-yoed back and forth throughout the whole event, and I think at that point he was having some pretty good issues with his feet and slowed him down a little bit. But before that, we were back and forth, and yeah, just good people.
Absolutely. No, it seemed like it was. Y'all both lit up really happy whenever y'all saw each other. So that was cool to see and just be a part of that as we were coming into the aid station. And like you said, got the feet worked on, got everything kind of worked out. And what's that look like? Mile 214-ish at Fort Tuttle right there. Is that right?
Yeah, I got a blurred map that I'm looking at. I think that sounds about right.
I'm doing the same thing right now. Yeah, I think it's about 214. I'm pulling it up right here.
Yeah, 215 according to the address thing. So yeah, somewhere around there.
Okay. So then there was a suspected 15-mile stretch for you and Dad to knock out coming out of there headed towards Walnut. But I know that one seemed to go on forever, and it actually ended up being a little longer, but y'all can talk about that.
Yeah, it was actually a really pretty stretch of the whole race. I would say that it was right up there, actually from that point on was just beautiful, and not in a better place really. You're in a bad place in the race, and well, good place, you're getting close, but bad mentally and physically just from being out there for so long. And the scenery was beautiful. It was rolling up and down. We jogged a little bit, or whatever you want to shuffle, or whatever you want to call it, and was moving pretty good. And I kept looking under these pine trees, and just at that point I'm losing my mind, and I'm like, that looks like a good place to sleep. That looks like a good place to sleep. I was like, I should lay down there, but I know as soon as I do, everybody's just going to come and wake me up. And we didn't see anybody. It went on forever, and I'm thinking, man, we should have slept. And then all of a sudden, here comes the 36 milers from the Elden Crest, 36 miles, and they're fresh. The leader passes us, and we got to see the first and second place. All of them. Really, we got to see all of them. And it was, some of them were really nice, and other ones that was, it was hit or miss. I was grumpy. They were kind of a little, didn't say the right words, and I didn't want to move over, and I'm tired. I'm trying to keep my pace, and I'm not trying to stop and move over. So it was a little frustrating, I think, at that point of the race. But there was some great people that were motivational people too, that said some good things and stuff like that. And then we just kept going down the trail, and it just got more and more interesting. We looking at elk poop, and they looked like milk duds. So we started talking about that they were elk duds, and came up with this whole scheme about patenting these elk duds and getting them in different varieties of moisture and all kinds of stuff. It went deep, and the conversation.
Leave it to me to take you down a whole nother trail.
I mean, we were talking about having sticky elk duds stuck in our teeth, and from putting it in our lip like chew, and all kinds of good stuff. And
protein packed elk duds. We were going to market it, sell it. It's new business, everything.
Yeah, and we went down the Looney Tune tunnel there, and I'm quoting Looney Tunes and talking about crossing the finish line through the Looney Tune portal, like Porky Pig at the end of a movie. That's all, folks. Yeah, I was losing it really at that point. I was definitely, and your dad was, we just had fun just getting into that aid station, and it was a fun stretch, and beautiful, just absolutely beautiful out there.
It was. It turned into a lot of single track area, especially as we got into the mountains and that first part of it. Like I said, nobody else was there for about half of that whole first section of that, and until the 36 miler started coming on the left, on the right. But before that, it was just beautiful single track, and it gave us a lot of time to wander and see those spots to hang a hammock up or take a snooze under a tree. But you never stop I think you only stopped one time because you had a little tightness in your right quad, I think, and around your knee, and you just kind of sat back and we kind of worked on that for a little bit. But other than that, you kept moving, and I could tell at moments you felt really good, and you would pick up the pace and start jogging a little bit, and then I could tell sometimes you were kind of fading back out a little bit and you feeling it a little bit, but man, I was impressed. You just kept moving, and you climbed the uphills you climbed. It seemed like those were more your kind of thing because you were doing really well on that. I was like, keep up with it, but you did a great job.
Yeah, thanks. And then I think I was just completely in a fog, and that one guy in the 36 miler, he was walking, and we got to talking and joking around and stuff, and I was joking around about 36 milers, and we were both kind of giving each other bad times about stuff, and but really he kind of woke me up out of a pretty good fog that I had coming into there and stuff, and I was joking around about him, like, don't let me pass you, don't let me come back and pass you on the Elden Mountain. And towards the end, when the aid station was coming in, I started running, and he was just like, "Oh, we're running now!" And he ran into the aid station with us and stuff. And I joked around about just like, it would have been a lot better if you guys would at least invite me to the race medals, and I could have finished the Elden Crest as dead last finisher. I think he kind of took that as a challenge, like I was telling him he was going to be dead last, and we kind of joked around a little bit about that and gave each other a little hard time, but it was all in good fun just to get us through the race. So.
Oh yeah, that stretch ended up being like about 17 and a half miles instead of the 14 or 15, I think we were thinking, or something like that. So it ended up taking a little bit longer to get to that aid station than we thought.
Yeah, there was a lot of Cocodona was like that. My watch, unfortunately, because I didn't bring the charger, died out at 200. But when my watch said 200, we weren't even. I believe that was at Munds Park at 191. So I'd already had an additional 9 miles. I know Coros and Garmin both will do it, depending on the settings you have. And there was some Garmin's out there that was even getting more miles than that, which was I did see where somebody had said that the race was 2:59. So I would have to fact check that, but I know I'd seen Chad Wright and them saying 250 plus, 250 plus. And I don't know if that's just because everybody was getting that on their watch, or it was actually over that 250 mark, because it definitely added some miles to a lot of aid stations.
Yeah.
Man, it sounds like y'all had a really good section out there, and I know we talked about it a lot while we were out there in Arizona. But I mean, shoot, that's kind of what you hope for in a pacer, right? At times, somebody that can get your mind off all that stuff that you're dealing with.
It's huge. I mean, I don't even know where I would be without having somebody to sit there and joke around about, elk duds and just conversate about so much. I mean, we were just talking away when we started out, and that's the advantage, I think, of having a pacer that you don't really know. You got plenty of stuff to talk about, and it's not that old friend that you went to high school with that you've told every story 100 times, and you're out there be like, yeah, I heard this. You just, I might tell you 3 times during the Cocodona 250, but at least it's still new.
Yeah, right. It's still fresh enough that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Man. Well, heck yeah. Well, you came to Walnut, and I think you beat the time we expected to see you at Walnut too. We were expecting 12 something. I think it was like 12:30 or 12:50, and you ended up coming in at 11:30. So picked up the pace and knocked the socks off of it again, and it was really cool to see. And then, of course, Grace was there waiting for you. She had gotten breakfast, and on top of that, had you a spot cleared out so you could sleep a little bit if you needed to. I think you planned on it at the time, and then work on your feet as well out there.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty cool aid station. I think you were going to sleep initially, and then ended up not doing that very much. I think he might have grabbed 5-10 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
And then we got packed in, and that was a weird aid station because you never know, anything can happen with 20 miles left, and you got to go up a mountain, and it's midday already. So
I was
I
going to
think
say
both of them,
one of the things we kind of talked about was the timing of getting up Elden was something that you were shooting for too. So I know that was playing a factor into how much rest you were getting and when you wanted to take off again as well.
yeah, no, it definitely did, and we both had to really gear up, and I felt like we both had pretty heavy packs coming out of the Walnut aid station right there, just because we didn't know exactly what we might get into in the night of that last night of the race. Um,
Yeah,
but
and I think I just really want to get over that before the sun went down. That was my goal, is to get off that steep single track. Um, really, the end of the race, where I've seen races it get messy and stressful in those situations with people trying to get over these mountains at night and having problems with sleep deprivation and hallucinations and just really being in a bad place. And it's the place that I didn't want to be. So it was huge getting up there. Really at right around the sunset is where we got up there, and perfect timing, really. But yeah, we did have a heavy pack. I probably finished with a heavy pack because I didn't eat nearly much from my pack. I think most of it was in a waist belt of mine, and I was looking in my pack the whole time for food, and I had a waist belt literally full of foods that Grace had set up for me, and I totally just spaced it out. And so I carried that food on my hips, over the mountain and down the mountain. That's something that doesn't seem like a big factor, but I think that all factors into wear and tear in your body and your overall time and a lot of things. And something that I think with experience, it gets better of knowing what to have and what not to have. But at the same time, it's at Bigfoot, without any experience, I'd say I tried to cut everything too much. I'd be like, I don't need that in my pack. I don't need this in my pack. I'm only going to take a little bit of water because I'll fill up on this stream on the way, because I had, water crossings that I was going to get. And that's only as good as it is until you miss the water crossing or the water crossing don't no longer exist. So those factors of cutting weight sometimes can also be the factors of making you go without water, and has been for me not going without water in some of these. And I didn't experience that in this one. There wasn't any time that I ran out of water, which I think is huge. You pack the weight, which isn't ideal, but being dehydrated for any portion of time during that race could be detrimental to the finish. And
no, I agree with you, and I mean I think we ended up doing okay going out through that last section of trail, even with the heavier packs and everything. The weather stayed cool enough on us coming out of Walnut, even though we were in some of the lowlands, really sandy and dusty and kind of nasty going through there, the initial spot. But it was a good long way that we kicked around the foothills and kind of traced back and forth before we ever even got to Elden. I think we stared at it for a good 6
forever. It seemed like forever, and at that point I'm just tired. And like you said, we wrapped around and we questioned where the approach was going to be multiple times, and it seemed like it almost wrapped us right back around to Walnut Canyon. It almost seemed like we could have just cut across the field from Walnut Canyon and been right there. But
Yeah, we kept that one couple from going. That one guy and girl runners that were about to blow past that turn, headed straight towards Elden because it looked like the best way to go.
yeah,
Kept them from going out there, and it ended up just winding it back and forth, back into that water station back in there, about halfway up to the base of Elden. And that was cool. We passed a few more runners, got passed by a couple people, of course. I think you decided to take a couple dirt naps in there, or one dirt nap in there. You ended up sleeping for about 2 minutes with me.
Yeah.
And that was pretty cool. To see how you jump up and get a little bit of recharge out of that 2 minute nap was something else.
Yeah.
But
And then we took then another one we took going up. I took the other one right in the middle of the trail, and that was probably the most interesting dirt nap I've done to date, is sleeping literally in the middle of a trail on Elden Crest at probably, I would estimate it at 8,500 feet probably, because it's 9,300 feet, and we might have been 1,000 foot below the summit, if that. It could have even been higher than that, and just had to lay down. I was stumbling around a little bit and felt like I was about to topple off the hill, and I was just like, I got to lay down. And again, I just took a 2-minute nap, probably again, right there in the middle of the trail.
yeah, no, and even just a few 100 feet down from that, there was a rock, and you had sat down on it for just a second to kind of just give your feet a little bit of a break. Because, and we can talk about that. I think you started to have some issues with the feet and things like that as well. But you were nodding off, falling asleep right there, sitting on the rock as well. I mean, and that kind of a telltale sign that I knew you were going to need to take one of those dirt naps. But do you want to talk about kind of where your body was at, where your feet were at? Because you're a beast of a climber out there, and I know getting to Elden was something we were looking forward to, and then kind of threw the plan off a little bit with some things you ran into out there.
Yeah, I think just coming up that hill, I was having a little bit of, I don't think it was elevation. I was just the tired and fatigue. I started having a little bit of issues with some blisters on my feet that were underneath some calluses that were pretty deep. So yeah, I was just having issues with these calluses that were, and had blisters deep underneath the calluses. It didn't feel like any blister I'd ever had before. These calluses were rubbing pretty hard on these deep blisters, and it literally felt like a stick just being jabbed in the back of my heel. I tried to fight through the pain of it when we come down into that Elden station, and was just trying to mind over matter, but my brain wouldn't allow my body to just push through it. And there was an older gentleman there. I should have found out his name, that helped out huge. I mean, at the time I thought, wow, whatever, he's just going to wrap it with whatever he had. He had a Band-Aid and some weird tape that I hadn't even seen. It looked like something you would, tape your windows with when they're to seal out the water from or something. And he just kind of wrapped it around to cushion that hill, and it wasn't pretty at all. And I was worried about it just tearing at my feet, but I told him I ain't even worried about it. There's only 9 miles down the hill, and we'll be done with this. And what he did helped out huge. I mean, I still felt it, but it was huge relief with the feet. And I was able we were able to jog down a good portion of that hill. My quads and shins and hips and everything just kept getting loaded up to where they just didn't feel like they were going to support me any longer. And we would walk until I kind of bounced back from that, and then we just keep repeating it really all the way down, the mountain. Started getting dark, started getting into those later hours, and we came out of that long steep fire road down, and a little craziness with trying to find the trail at that point. It was a pretty good washed out area that we crossed, and then getting down into some single track coming down into Buffalo Park. I hit that point of that race to where in the past it's kind of weird. I feel like I've been there before. I start, recalling this from dreams I had or something, and to the point of some of the stuff that's happening is happening, right after I say it. And I think you've seen that where we came out and I was like, there's going to be a person that tells us it's down the road, in the Flagstaff. And sure enough, there's this guy, and I had mentioned, there's going to be a lady with a belt buckle or something. And this guy comes out and is like, it's 3 miles down the road and look for the lady. And we both kind of were like, what the heck?
Yeah.
I mean, I had the same experience in Moab, and it's definitely weird because I don't remember these dreams until I'm in these events, and then I definitely feel like I've been there before. Like I've been there. It's the details are fuzzy and they're different, but it's definitely like deja vu. I had some decent hallucinations, not bad. I hallucinated a little bit off of your shadows, thinking they would look like my dog running around. The shadows kind of just kept moving, and it looked like my border collie. I was spacing out pretty good and looking at rocks, and you really helped me through that section. I mean, I can't commend you enough of how good a pacer you are, just pulling me through there and being just even saying, "Hey, you all right? You coming?" And then I snap out of it. Yeah, I'm coming. And it pulled me right back in where I was looking around and forgetting what I was doing multiple times coming off that hill and really kind of getting discouraged too after that guy said 3 miles because it felt like the longest 3 miles and you're 250 plus miles into a race and you would think 3 miles isn't nothing, but it's a lot at that point. It becomes a lot.
It does. I remember a couple of times you asked me, you're like, man, how many miles we got left? And I'd tell you 4 or 3, thinking that might be something where it's like, okay, yeah, let's get it done. And it did have the opposite effect of it. You're like, damn it, we still got 3 miles.
Yeah.
Already did 247.
Yeah.
Man, circling back to Elden real quick. That was pretty brutal by the time we came off of there. I mean, it was getting real cold. We had like 60-mile-an-hour gusts. They tried to fly a drone over to film us on the live feed. Couldn't even get it over to us because the wind was so bad out there. But the food
you
at the
found a good aid station, didn't you?
yeah, we ended up going to the aid station up there, and they tried to fly it over to us again whenever we were closer to it, and just couldn't
Yeah,
do
it was
anything.
screaming. I was like, what the heck is that noise? And it was screaming, and then you just seen it kind of go with the wind and take off. But yeah, you could tell they had some real heavy winds up there. There was some of the equipment that was on top of there for measuring the weather, I imagine, was tore up, and there was pieces of debris on top of the mountain. And I was really just looking to get down to that aid station and get off of that mountain at that point, just because that'd be, not a good thing to happen to you. Be like, I was almost there, and then I got hit by, taken out by a weather reading device, and
Sure.
it was blowing. It was definitely extreme, and that's what I wanted to avoid of doing that. Add that factor into being dark and cold, and that wind, and not even knowing what's around you, and that could, that's a lot.
Yeah. I think we got some ribs and a sausage wrap in you up there at that aid
No,
station.
the best food at the last aid station. Go figure. That I needed that throughout the race, but yeah, it was some good food.
Yeah, and then you trucked it down the mountain. You ran a good 2.5, 3 miles downhill. Kept it going, looked really strong. Then, like you said, we ran into that single track, got a little bit tough to track it and keep going. But as it got dark, you got tired and kind of a little bit down. Popped some caffeine strips in there as well. I think we had some Rebbies and got you back on track.
Yeah, I think I was nervous about taking those, even though I'd taken some caffeine pills, but they didn't. They weren't as high a dosage, but they really they kicked in quick, because it just absorbs under your tongue. So I definitely need to look those up because they definitely snapped me out of the fog there at the end.
They were good. And then, man, coming up into Buffalo Park, seeing the guy talking about the lady, and then soon enough, I mean, we were back on the streets of Flagstaff. It's crazy to be at that point and be so close and have to stand and wait for crosswalk lights to blink and
yeah, that was a little frustrating, and I was just so tired. And we're both pretty big, and running side by side down those streets, especially when the the trail cam followed us. I was worried I was going to run into a sign or something, because there were signs, you know, on the street, and I'm like, that's just what I need to be on live YouTube feed and just totally whack myself and be laid out on the streets of Flagstaff. And, yeah, it was wild. So.
Man, yeah, and we took it on in, and like you said, live cam picked us up and ran down a couple more streets and caught the alley and got you in, man. Crossed the finish line, I think, in the 9 o'clock hour before 10 o'clock that night.
Yeah, and it was right where I wanted to be. It was great. And then backtracking a little bit too, that Elden Crest was a real. We didn't really talk about this, but it was real emotional. It was real emotional for me. I think we were talking about. I can't even recall exactly what we were talking about, but we were talking about some pretty deep stuff about just friendships and about how you guys came out to pace me in Arizona, and how other people, you know, came and showed up for me, and that got me emotional, and just kind of getting over a lot of past things that I've dealt with these last couple of years that are coming to full closure, and I kind of just got a little bit of closure out there on Elden, that, you know, this was a new chapter of my life, and moving forward of just being in a better state of mind and being around better people and stuff. And it really, I just can't say enough about you guys coming out there and showing up for me and being there for me. I mean, I was choked up. I was tired. I was choked up, choking down tears from just the emotions, and yeah, I just can't say enough about that. It was huge. And then just carrying us down to the finish line and finishing that race, when there was multiple times where I just didn't think it was going to be possible, and it all coming together and finishing in a good time. You know, I went in with a really tough goal that I didn't see achievable, and I think we even talked about it. And I said, more realistically, it's probably going to be 115 hours, and we were under that by, you know, close to 3 hours, and I'm extremely satisfied with that, and happy that it all worked out, and just grateful for everything, the friends, and being able to. I mean, everything that, you know, a lot of people just think about it, the finish in that race is all that matters in that situation, but it's really everything that's involved in that race, all the people that showed up, all the factors of that is, it's huge. That's what it's all about, really. It's not about finishing the race. It's about your experience and growing from that, and, you know, the things you learn and people you meet along the way. That's really what the whole adventure, as I like to call it, is about. And it just correlates so much with our everyday life and how we carry ourselves in everyday life, and the goals we set in our life, and everything we do to set standards ahead of ourselves to make us a better person. That just falls right into the ultra marathon world, and it's
100%. I think it falls into what Chance and I have kind of discovered, you know, as we've been on our journey of, you know, just getting in better shape and then getting into ultra running. But it's just we call it kind of our circle of positivity, or our circle of positive influence, or whatever you want to call it. It's like we run into people and it seems to branch out. You know, we met Todd, and then it grew into meeting up with you and Grace, and it's just, flows into everything else we do in life. And it's just, if you put yourself in a position to do good things and have good things happen to you, those things are just going to come to you. And that's kind of, I think, what we're seeing. And us being able to come out and be a part of this event with you, we really appreciate you allowing us to come be a part of it. And we're just, I just floored to see you do it. It's just amazing to watch you do it. I'd already been thinking about a 200 miler in my future, maybe. And that just got me thinking about it even more, watching you achieve that goal. You're a fantastic dude. Is inspirational. Thanks. For sure.
Thank you.
No, And that sums it up beautifully. It was an amazing experience. It was cool to get out there and to be a little part of that, to see you get some of that closure, kind of close the book on some of the chapters of your life that we talked about out there. But more than that, to see how you were through those last miles of that race and what it meant to you, and just to be a small part of that. Thank you for letting us do that, and we'll forever cherish the memories of going out there to Arizona and being part of this amazing race, and then obviously the friendship that has blossomed out of it, and I couldn't ask for a better experience with signing up for going to pace somebody all the way in Arizona that we knew for 1 minute, right?
Right. It was definitely an
Yeah.
experience, man. And thank you guys for everything. Really, it was great.
Absolutely, man.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think that kind of puts a bow on the whole Cocodona 250. I
Yeah.
do have to ask you, one thing I ask everybody that comes on the podcast is, man, what's next in line for you? What do you have coming down the pipe?
Yeah, it's first I'll speak on the name next in line. I think we talked about that a couple of days ago, and it kind of hit me with the name and just with correlation to everything that's going on in my life and everything. And I'm like, man, that's a great name. It's really what everything revolves around in your life is like, what's next in line for you? And I talked about like, people get comfortable in marriages and jobs and whatever it is, and instead of looking for what's next in line or what's their next step and better in themselves and not getting in that comfortable stage. I think people have this concept of comfortable is good, but comfortable is not good. Comfortable takes you in places where you don't want to be. It takes you in places of alcoholism, abuse, just you name it. I could go on forever of where comfortable could take you. It really revolves around the unhappiness, and having something next in line is really what it's all about. You have something to look forward to, and your journey never stops. You have a goal, you celebrate that goal, but you move on, and that's great name. So anyway, my next in line is within my little fatigue after Cocodona and being tired, my next in line would have been the Bigfoot 200, which is like my big pinnacle of the year because of my first DNF last year, and really my first big event. And I was just feeling myself a little bit. I signed up for a 56K in Mount Shasta headwaters, which is where I was born. It's a great race. It goes up. It's 8,000 foot of elevation gains, and it goes up to Mount Eddy crest, and just a beautiful area. And I kind of made a goal to try to do that every year just because of where I'm from, and it's the shortest race I really do is a 56K. And then I just had this notion to do the Black Hills 100 in South Dakota, which is 105 miles actually. It's 52 miles, 52 and a half miles out and back course. Pretty steep. It's got 16,000 plus feet of elevation gain. And really my biggest challenge of hundreds, and the more I look at it, it's definitely a maybe for me, but it's something that I want to do to challenge myself to see if I can do it. And if I DNF, I'm fine with that. It's a learning experience, and I know that to be able to do something like that I'm going to work harder, or I do it and I'm like, hey, I can do these other hundreds that are hard too. It's a possibility. And really it's going to start with just seeing what's possible, and that maybe. And I text Billy the other day and says, hey, your maybe is going to be the KD 225, man. That's all you need is a maybe. You can do it. And
There you go.
so I kind of putting some wood on the fire for us all to be out in Katy, and I think that'd be just a great way to end the year, just to top off a huge year of just huge growth and big races and achievements and friendships and everything. I think that'd be just a way to just cap off the year. And I think I mentioned it to Todd, and Todd even said, well, that makes me want to do it even that much more if his dad does it.
That's awesome. No, we're all really really stoked about it on our end, man. We got a mess of people coming out. We're going to know some people in the race. I think they just posted the list of aid stations out there. So, man, it's going to be an awesome cap to the end of the year. It truly is. You summed it up perfectly. Just all the crazy stuff that's been going on. Even we hadn't announced it yet, but getting old dad out there.
Yeah, you put me on the spot a little bit. I've been talking to both of you about it, so I'm gonna do it.
There you go.
I'm gonna do it.
I'm gonna do it. Heck of it.
Why not?
Why not?
I mean, I might as well join the party. We're gonna all be there. Todd's gonna be there.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a great group.
Yeah, bring some extra pacers. If anybody's listening, I need some pacers for that one too.
No kidding.
All my pacers are running it.
Yeah, exactly.
This could be the issue.
Yeah, man. Well, it sounds like you got some awesome stuff lined up for the rest of the year. You did a fantastic job out at Cocodona, and again, we're just blessed to be a part of it and to get to talk to you about your story and learn more about you throughout that entire process and this conversation we've had today. So, man, I really do appreciate you coming on and sharing that with us and being part of the Next in Line podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, guys, y'all got anything else to fire off on this one?
Man, I don't think so. It was just it was an honor and a privilege to be a part of it and to talk to you today. I had a few people asking me questions in the community and stuff that I was telling them about what we did because they saw it on social media and like, y'all did what? And but they asked me about, well, did he have any stomach issues? I mean, there's some people that do some running and stuff too, and they're kind of curious. And it doesn't sound like you had any stomach issues at all, for the most part.
No, not really. Just the occasional gas, but that's normal even at home. So.
Oh, that's normal anyway. But it sounds like it was pretty solid. You were eating early on and kept doing that throughout the race. It sounds like so. Yeah, that was one of the questions I had. Then I was asking how long till you felt like you could run again on your legs afterwards, and a few of those questions are popping up.
Yeah, that is actually my bounce back from this one's the fastest it's ever been. I felt decent after Moab, but this one, I was walking the next day in Flagstaff, pretty decent, not hobbling too much. Feeling pretty good. And then I do a Fleet Feet racing team locally, and 5 days later, it was the 10th, went out and did a pretty intensive training with them. They did some ladder training where we run at 80% for 2 minutes, and the whole ladder back off sets like that, and ended up doing like, I don't know what it was. It was like 3.5 miles, but it was fluctuation and running pretty hard. I was even running like 7 minute and 20-second mile pace, for 2 minutes. And looking back now, that was probably a little too soon. I had a little bit of growing pain the next day, but I felt good. And I just ran again yesterday. I ran about 5 miles yesterday. The hardest factor I'm finding that's coming back is I'm just been tired. I've been tired throughout the day. I can't make it throughout the day without taking a nap. My nutrition is, I'm hungry constantly. I eat a bunch and I'm hungry a couple hours later. And I feel like I just could eat and eat and eat and sleep is all I feel like doing. So that's the hardest factor.
I think that's completely understandable.
Yeah, and it's
catching
still,
up on sleep and
what are we
nutrition.
15th is 10 days ago, and I still feel like I haven't completely reset from this event. It's definitely taken a minute to recover on that aspect of it with the calories burned and sleep lost.
I completely understand. It sounds like other than your blisters and calluses, that's been the major thing that was bothering you after the race, other than fatigue and lack of sleep kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel good. I'm actually already started the 40-day block of training for Black Hills 100. So that's going to be big. That's a big one for me. It's definitely going to be a challenge. I know it is. It's got a pretty stiff cutoff and pretty good elevation, but we'll see how it goes.
Absolutely. Shoot.
Did you want to bring up your ambassadorship that you're doing as well?
Yeah, I got an ambassadorship from Ultraspire, and it was kind of an interesting story on that too. I'd ordered some water bottles, and they never showed up in the mail, and I was hitting up customer service about that. And, got to just tell them, talking stories with Zach, the customer service guy there. He's a super nice guy, and we went back and forth with emails and stuff. He got my shipment lined out, and in the midst of that, just with telling some of the stories, he was like, "Hey, you missed this year, but maybe you can get in on next year." And he's giving me all the information. And then from there, he was just like, "Hey, Jody said we had an extra spot. We can get you in on there this year." And he was able to get me in this year on the Ultraspire ambassadorship, and that's been huge. It gives me good discounts on the gear, and just having them and knowing that they were watching me in the office, that was another big factor. Because, I just don't want to let people down. I know they're, watching me from the office, and people at home watching me, family. My family means so much to me, that how they follow me and have gotten inspired by this themselves and all want to be part of it. It's just that ripple effect that affects everybody around you. That's why I do it. That's really why I do it, is just the inspiration of, the unknown people around you, and then family, just making a difference and making people want to get out and do things. And
well, man, brother, you're inspirational yourself. I know you inspirational to a lot of people, especially to me, and it's a chance of myself for sure. And I know I see you posting stuff. Where can people find you at on social media?
Bigfooted, what is it, _ Ultra Adventures.
I actually wrote it down because I was going to make sure we put it on there. Bigfooted with an ED _ Ultra Adventures.
Thanks.
On Instagram.
Okay.
It used to be Bigfooted Hiker, but I accidentally deleted that account. So it kind of worked out good, because I was going into a different chapter with the ultra running. So it was going away from the hiking and more into the events. So it was time, I guess, for the other one to be gone. So. And then, just on Facebook, on Daniel Gilliam, that's a private account. I just basically post mainly to Instagram. So.
Oh, heck yeah. Man. Well, I don't figure this will be the last time we have you on the podcast either. Especially between the races you have coming up and we have coming up, and how some of those are aligning pretty well.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to it. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule and your recovery. I know we're 10 days out, but you're still actively recovering right now. So thanks for that.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this was my first podcast. A little bit of nerves, and just I talk, and I'm all over the place with talking. So hopefully people get it and understand, where I'm coming from, because I can be all over with everything. So as we do this more often, maybe I'll get a little bit better.
Yeah. No, you did a jam up job. I mean, you did a real good job just getting everything across, walking through. We had a little bit of a guide with the map here, and then us being Pacers laid in had a little bit more insight too. So, no, I think it's a real good episode, and I think people are going to take a lot away from that, especially hearing your story, where you came from, and how you just honestly dove in head first to this thing and decided you were just going to do it.
Yeah, I still feel like I am.
Yeah.
That's awesome, dude.
Heck yeah. Well, brother, Dad, thank y'all so much for being on here. If y'all need anything ever, give us a shout. Be happy to do it. We'll be out there pacing, I'm sure, for you at some point again, and we'll definitely see you in October at Katy.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you. There. And if you doing Cocodona next year and need a pacer, I'm there too.
I appreciate that. I'll probably take you up on it, because I think Cocodona is on the hit list for me. So.
Yeah. I'm an influencer.
That's right. Yeah, you influence me for sure.
Yes, sir. You sure are.
All right.
Yes, sir.
You guys take it easy. Good night.
All
You
right.
too. Good night, y'all.
Enjoy it, y'all.
All right, guys. Well, there you have it. That is the full and complete recap of the Cocodona 250 Ultramarathon with Mr. Dan Gilliam. I'm very happy I got to sit down and have this conversation. I hope you're able to pull out the same kind of value that I've been able to from getting to sit down and recap and hash out all these awesome details of this very, very cool and challenging event over in Arizona. Guys, if you did receive some kind of value from this or just some entertainment, maybe some laughs, I highly encourage you to consider sharing the show with someone who could receive that same kind of value, that entertainment, get those same laughs, because all that's going to do, guys, is help us grow this movement and grow this podcast and continue to get awesome individuals like Dan on the show to talk about these amazing events that they have taken on in their lives. Now, guys, I hope you're having an awesome Memorial Day. It is Memorial Day as this podcast dropped. I'm very, very happy to say that we will be taking on the Murph today. And, guys, I challenge you to get out there and do something tough as well. Do something to make you step out of your comfort zone, to help you grow personally, and to really jumpstart your drive and your journey into personal development. Guys, that's all I got for you today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and always be prepared for whatever is next in line.